Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Late Show. This is your host, Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. Um, who needs a drink? um, so, we are going to have a late show as one of my favorite comedians and late night show hosts has it. We miss Craig dearly. I wish he would come back, but I don't think his heart is in it anymore. But his spirit lives on whenever I have a guest, at any rate. This is for Craig Ferguson. As always, though, we will talk about watches. Yesterday, as you guys know, the story about John Lennon's Patek uh, broke out. It was a very beautiful piece on the New Yorker by Jay Fielden, which I shared with you on last night's stream for the first hour. If you want to roll back the tape and watch a little bit, and I also did a little cut for an Instagram video, which I've been doing quite frequently these days. I have two or three of those lined up for the next couple of days. You guys know I take Wednesdays off, so I won't be with you tomorrow night, but on Thursday, of course, I'll be back, and I'll be back with another episode of the references and auction results brought to you by the enthusiastic support of I Love Maldives. And it's going to be on Arnold Schwarzenegger's watches, or watches that were connected to Arnie and that were sold on public auction. A lot of interesting Audemars Piguet pieces that I'm sure we will have a lot of fun looking through and discussing. Ryan Joffrey, hey man, nice to see you there. Hey, I'm not a numbers guy. I was never a numbers guy in my entire life. I just do things that I like, that I enjoy, that I pour my passion, heart, and brain into. And at some point, they attract certain people, and those people are pretty loyal to me. And it's a community that's increasing bit by bit. As long as I do my part, as long as I'm frequent, the numbers always get bumped up again. But I'm not really worried about it in that kind of way. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy, as I will. As always, I start things off with looking at a couple of things that I posted on Instagram lately. You guys know on last Saturday, there was a very nice meeting in Hollywood put together by Asher and Gabe of Collective Horology, focusing specifically on independent brands. This is a watch that they dropped officially today, a limited edition of 30 pieces. You guys know that I always have been a big fan of Armin Strom. You'll see here that the watches are just a tiny bit too big for my taste on my wrist. Uh, However, the gravity equal force is one of those fascinating watches if you are interested in the concept of constant force, if you like open worked or off center dials that give you something not only aesthetically pleasing but also technically impressive to look at. Of course, here in your view, you will have the micro rotor movement, which is quite an impressive feat in combination with constant force, and also the equal force barrel, which in conjunction with that off-center dial is right around 4 o'clock. This particular edition is called Night Ops Edition. Sounds a little, too overblown perhaps in that way, but I do enjoy the tactical look. I do enjoy the stealth inspiration, which, by the way, apparently takes after those pocket knives that Asher of Collective Horology is very fond of collecting. The dial, of course, with that smoked khaki green look, reflects that military inspiration, and the decoration of the dial, as well as the details on those bridges that are visible from the dial side, also are inspired by those tactical pocket knives. I think it's a very fun watch. It's in titanium, which is the new hype metal, I guess. People care more about titanium and ceramic these days than they do about precious metal or even stainless steel. And it's DLC coated, so in combination with that canvas or textile strap, it really reflects that stealth feel in a very subtle and aesthetically pleasing way. I want to say they were around $27,000, so it's not a cheap watch by any means, but Arme Strom's pricing is at any rate at that level, so it's not that surprising that a special version of it would carry a slight premium. It's a very beautiful watch. Not exactly my taste, whether we are talking about the proportions or the particular layout, but it's something that's quite subtle, still horologically impressive, and quite a different vibe than your usual high horology piece. Kind of, I don't really want to juxtapose two different brands at very different ends of the price spectrum, but this is perhaps like a more butch and certainly much more accessible competitor to, let's say, the Insight Micro Rotor by Romain Gauthier, which is, of course, again, at a different level, ostensibly. In the same price range, you have a watch that offers much more complication that I just posted about it today. Hey, Brightling. Yeah, I have more time these days, so whenever I see the watch hangout on, JJ, Ali, and all those guys are people I consider by and large kindred spirits. So when I see them online and I have some time to kill, I'm more than happy to jump on that show because I enjoy the conversation. I know I have something to give to it, I have something to contribute, and I always have fun when I am in their company. This is Habring 2, everyone's favorite Austrian watchmaker based in Carinthia, so a little further away from the ostensible center of things. But Richard Habring, of course, is himself quite a heavyweight and carries a very important legacy. He was Kurt Klaus's protege, basically, in IWC's complications workshop, and he was the person who built the module for a split-second chronograph on the base of the ever-present workhorse chronograph movement, Valjoux 7750, in the same way that Kurt Klaus built the module for a perpetual calendar on that same base. Of course, Richard Habring has been working as an independent for quite some time. A lot of the early pieces that he had did actually build on the Valjoux 7750 base. These days, even though a lot of the watches still carry forward with that same architecture, the parts are now independently sourced and, of course, always assembled, finished and assembled in-house. And in fact, Habring at this point in time actually makes movements for others rather than buying movements from another brand. They have provided movements for Stefan Kudoke of Kudoke watches, of course, and also Benzinger. You guys perhaps know the Benzinger Gap watch, and that name GAP or GAP stands for German Austrian Partnership, because it is Habring 2 that supplies the movement for that German watch. Now, this is their flagship model. It's something they call the Chronofelix Perpetual. It's a perpetual calendar chronograph, of course, with a leap year indicator and a moon phase indicator. It's also a single button or mono pusher chronograph, where all the chronograph functions are operated by this single pusher at 2 o'clock. They make a beautiful salmon dial, which you can see even through that plastic wrapping. This watch was already sold to another customer, so I didn't have the liberty to unwrap it and play around with it, even though Brandon was, as always, very generous of Horology by the Sea. I mean, Habring makes a lot of interesting complications at a very appealing price point, but they also make some stunning dials, and this is a great example, or that of that. The Breguet numerals make this watch very subtly elegant in combination with that dial. And I don't know if you noticed, but that's khaki green nubuck strap also has this copper toned or salmon colored contrast stitching as well, which gives this sort of very cool and kind of a sporty vibe, if I have to put it a certain way, to this otherwise very classically elegant watch. And that watch is in stainless steel, 38.5 millimeters in diameter, and it's, I believe, around 26,000 US dollars, which, again, for the kind of horological feat you are getting to wrap on your wrist, it's a lot of value in today's market. Ryan Joffrey says, I love titanium and I loathe DLC, but I get it. Stealth. Yeah, kind of. Ryan was always, of course, talking about the Armenstrom Gravity Eco Force, which is titanium with a DLC coated case. Admittedly, this is not something Armenstrom does. They have never done it except for this edition. I'm not sure they ever will. It's not really their style, but it's kind of the stealth or blacked out watch after the tradition of Porsche design Chronograph 1, right? That was the first serially produced blacked out piece, and it was also DLC coated titanium. I'm okay with titanium. I don't love or hate it. I think it really depends on the watch. It fit this watch really well. And I think, again, DLC coating fit the vibe of this watch really well. But it's not really what I would go after either. So I completely respect your stance. Memovox from Denmark. Man, thank you so much. 50 kroner. Good morning to you as well. We didn't get to talk about the Denmark game yesterday. I don't know if you're following the European Championships, but I was kind of gutted myself when I watched the game, because I was extremely happy when Eriksen scored. Obviously, you know, he's a Spurs legend, so I always loved him, but it was so meaningful for him to score in this particular championship after what he went through in the last one, the Euro 2020, which was, of course, held in 2021. And I think he presents, or he represents rather, something really important for your team, for the Danish team, but also for the spirit of the game. So I was really happy that he came back to the European Championship, scored a goal, and I was hoping that Denmark would win, but it wasn't meant to be, and it's kind of difficult, you know, now to progress from that group, because it's I believe it's kind of a difficult group. Yeah, because the next game is against England, and then it's Serbia. So if you guys had beaten Slovenia, you could easily afford to lose to England and then, you know, battle it out with Serbia on the last, since there's still a round of 16. So there's a good chance to qualify as a third place team for the next round as well. But now it might be actually tough, especially if you guys lose to England. Hey, Ozzy, feel free to jump on, man. If you have some free time, we can kick things around. Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorites, because they did have this kind of perpetual calendar chronograph in their catalog, but it was what they called the perpetual doppel. So it was a perpetual calendar split seconds chronograph, since Doppelchronograph is the German word for that. And you might say that fit the legacy of Richard Habring better, but that case was too big for my taste. It was, I think, almost 42 millimeters in diameter. This watch sits beautifully on the wrist. And you know what? For a watch geek, not for a civilian, not for a normal person, so to speak, this can be a one and done. And speaking of which, that was the story, at least part of the story, with John Lennon's 2499, which, of course, we knew of its existence thanks to this particular photograph, which was which had been disseminated for years. The watch itself was one of the perhaps most influential examples of lost celebrity watches. My personal favorite is Sugar Ray Robinson's pink gold 1518, so the predecessor of this genre. But the Lennon Patek, John Lennon's 2499J, the perpetual calendar chronograph in 18 karat yellow gold, was perhaps the most important, possibly the most valuable celebrity watch to have been lost in the mix. And last year, I think someone digging through some Swiss legal records came with some evidence that it was now being fought over, contested between Yoko Ono, who argues that the watch is stolen, and an Italian collector by the name of Mr. A, who has bought the watch in the past, but the watch today is held in escrow at Christie's Geneva, apparently. And it has a couple of special things about it. Of course, the fact that it was a personal gift for the 40th birthday of John Lennon from Yoko Ono is part of it, and it is properly inscribed that way, given to him just a couple of months before his tragic passing. And I'm sure some people already knew about this, had an idea about this, or at least could guess as much, since the watch was, bought in New York, bought by someone who resides in New York, so on and so forth. You could guess that it was bought from Tiffany and Company, and it was bought from Tiffany's on Fifth Avenue, which means that it carries that much vaunted stamp at 6 o'clock as well. Hey Oz, how are you doing,
Hey
man?
there. As much as we all hate Yoko Ono, um,
I also hate John Lennon too, just for good measure.
oh,
So
okay. I don't. I mean, I don't know much about Lennon, honestly. But yeah, I find it hard to imagine that this wasn't stolen. Just from the fact that like it's got these inscriptions and everything like that, and
yeah.
it's not like Lennon wasn't famous, crazy famous at the time that this might have gone floating about or what have you. There seems like there's very little chance that this would have been sold.
Did you
Um,
did you read the story at all? Did you have a chance?
no,
So what happened was, of course, the circumstances of of his passing are really, really tragic, and I love saying these kinds of controversial things. Obviously, I don't have any hate in my heart for Yoko Ono or for John Lennon. He is certainly not my favorite Beatle. Let's put that to rest. I love George Harrison, uh,
mhm,
but it turns out that basically right after he passed, and I think they had not one but like four different apartments
mhm,
in the Dakota in Manhattan.
mhm,
Um, it was basically locked in one of the personal rooms in one of those apartments, and then a little more than 2 decades after, in a kind of feud between Yoko Ono and her personal assistant, driver, etc., this kind of mysterious Turkish person, he basically took her to court. He was sued by Yoko Ono. He ended up being deported to Turkey, and he basically walked away with the watch as well as some personal effects of John Lennon. He had argued in the past that the watch was gifted to him by Yoko Ono. At any rate, whatever happened at that point, until the watch resurfaces about a decade from that date, which was around 2005, it turns up at Christie's in Geneva through Germany and some other places. And it's only after Christie's calls Yoko Ono's lawyer that Yoko Ono goes to that room and realizes that the watch is not there. So she hadn't even reported it stolen.
Yeah.
or in any way.
That makes sense to me.
Before that. And then, pushing aside the intricacies of the legal process that's still not finalized, the courts are leaning towards Yoko Ono's case, though. Apparently, the Swiss internal system is almost exhausted, and their equivalent of the Supreme Court is going to pass a judgment on it soon, which means it might be returned to New York. Either way, I think wherever it goes, whether Mr. A keeps it or Ono or Lennon family gets it back, I think it's going to be on the chopping block quite soon, on public auction very soon. I don't think they are keeping it.
It's like, no, you keep that in Geneva. You go off the auction. Just give me the money. Yeah. It's such a, all of that's so plausible. I mean, I didn't read the story, but I guess that's exactly what happened. Well, not that they knew the person, and to me it sounded like maybe they'd already passed hands at some point, but yeah, a mysterious disappearance of the piece, and amongst a large amount of personal effects, it would go unnoticed. But certainly a high profile watch like that does not escape attention even at the time. So the main issue was like there was no point at which this could have been sold legitimately and everyone not know exactly what happened, roughly speaking.
Funny enough, again, if we roll back the tape on the story a little bit, so that person who initially walked away with the watch and who for a while argued that it was a personal gift from Yoko Ono to him. And apparently there's a deposition where Yoko Ono says, I did give this guy a gold watch that once belonged to my husband. Right? So there is kind of a mystery or a misunderstanding or miscommunication there. This watch was given to a friend of that guy in Turkey as a collateral for a loan. That other person went to Germany with the watch and basically pilfered it to this disruptor of an auction platform that's back in early 2000s was live streaming their auctions and whatever. They were supposed to list it, and then the person who was selling the watch got cold feet. They didn't care. The auction house didn't really care, informing Yoko Ono or anything. They were going to sell it nonetheless. But at the end of the day, their watch experts communicated with this Mr. A, the mysterious Mr. A, Italian collector, and sold the watch to him through a private treaty, which meant that the Italian collector took that watch and instead gave them a bunch of Rolexes, consigned a bunch of Rolexes and Pateks for their watch departments. They sold those watches and probably made about $700,000, and that paid for his acquisition of the Lennon Patek. So if that guy then didn't get smart and walk into Christie's Geneva to try to sell the watch himself, the watch could have been lost to ages and just became a conversation piece of sorts as part of his collection, which apparently also included pieces by Eric Clapton and everything. So,
how many watches does Lennon have? It kind of strikes me as not the person to have a watch, even though, through all of history, watches have been fashionable up until the smartphone, basically.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, that's why that idea that Yoko Ono admitted that she gifted a watch to that personal driver is kind of suspicious, because apparently, at least by some accounts, he had exactly two: this watch and a pocket watch. And the
Right.
pocket watch, Yoko Ono held onto it and sold it, I believe, through Sotheby's some years back. And this watch, he's not known to have a second or third watch of any sort of value. I'm not even talking about just luxury watches or anything.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So it's yeah, I'm reading this New Yorker article saying that the Patek appears to be his one and only wristwatch. Very
well,
interesting.
not a bad way to go, to be honest, right? You know,
Yeah,
if you're going to have a one and done,
you're
a
one and done.
perpetual calendar chronograph seems to serve the purpose, seems to hit the right spot.
That can't be that great of a one and done. Like
Okay,
like
Rolex guy, tell me, give it to me.
yeah, I mean, like they're not waterproof today. Never mind, never mind back then. And
They're basically splash proof. You know, you would want to take it off if you're washing dishes.
right. And like that's just not a great recipe for one and done. And also like it's a pretty serious movement, it's not shock proof and stuff like that, and just you look at it wrong, it'll eventually be broken. And so now your one and done is off to Geneva for 6 months to be repaired. You literally don't have a watch for a while.
That's I mean, you I I said it romantically. You have completely shattered my dream from a technical point, because beyond the complication as well, in terms of uh, the waterproofness of the case, in terms of how you can seal the case,
Mm.
um, a perpetual calendar chronograph is basically the worst. You have the two
It's got
pushers.
all the holes.
Yeah, you have the two pushers, right? You know, for the chronograph. So even if the crown seals, you got those as compromising points, and then you have at least three more pin pushers, you
Mhm.
know, for corrections of the calendar and the moon phase. So you're fucked. You're absolutely fucked. That's why, I mean, and also these kinds of watches, forget about being waterproof. They're sometimes not even humidity and dust proof.
Right.
So it's not something for everyday wear,
Yeah,
especially
one and done.
considering the value of it.
Yeah, I mean, even I was looking at my Black Submariner a fair bit. There's a little bit of a scratch on the sapphire. It's
Oh,
my oldest new Rolex, so it'll be coming up upon its warranty date eventually in a couple of years, but it's tracking time a little slow. Um, it's two something, and I actually don't know what the superlative chronometer spec is. It says +2 -2, but is it +2.0 -2.0, or is like 2.2 seconds out acceptable? I really don't know. Um, and I was thinking, because my wife influences me a lot. It's like I should just
okay.
try and trade it in to get the no date, just to reduce the amount of complications that can go wrong. And I think it probably won't work out because they really are stingy. But if I go to Booker and say, "Here's my date sub, give me a new no date," it's possible. It's possible because it's like 9,000 something, and if they give me trade-in value, at 10,000 or something like that, which they won't, but if they did, then I would be able to do a straight swap to a new no date and not have any of the
I,
maintenance issues that might be pending for that watch.
Actually, I mean, that's an interesting proposition, because by the way, guys, please hit the like button. I haven't said it today, but for a small channel like this, it makes a lot of difference. So, just give us that assurance in advance. Even if you have just logged in, please hit the like button. But I think Rolex's standard, like you said, is +2, -2, by the way, which
Yeah.
is a smaller spectrum than the -4, +6, which is the COS certification. I don't know about the official policy of the CPO program, but the watch dealers in general, even the best ones, even the ones that operate on good faith, if you are the one who walks in to trade something, they usually ask for a little bit of money. I mean, it's even if your watch is slightly more valuable than what you want, if you're initiating the trade, usually dealers ask for something from you than the other way around, if the value is close. But maybe you're standing in Bukhara, and the fact that they are so closely connected to Rolex, but especially to the CPO program, they might do something different for you. And like I do prefer, when it comes to the Submariner, and when it comes to an everyday watch, anyways, I prefer something that is actually without dates,
Yeah.
because I mean, I get the concept, right? Especially in an old school kind of thing, like, if you are the head honcho and you're signing a lot of things, maybe you need a date on your watch. But I've never needed my watch to actually know the date. I don't know. So I never depended on it. Perhaps that's one reason. My main watch for a good part of my adulthood was my no date Submariner. So I guess I learned to live with it. Since my dad couldn't pay for it.
Couldn't, it was an extra $30. Oh my gosh.
No, it didn't even exist when he bought it,
Oh,
because
right, right.
the no date
Yeah, it
is
was like
already.
the 80s that, yeah, yeah.
No, this was in late 60s.
No, no, I'm saying it was the 80s that was the appearance of the first date sub, right?
Uh, yeah, I don't remember the exact year. I think it's more like late 70s
Okay.
than 80s, but yeah. Memovox says, by the way, Lennon drove a Rolls. He also drove a Merc 600 Pullman. Patek was a daily beater to John. Interesting enough, I mean, these guys basically all had Pateks. You guys probably know that both Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney were Aquanauts, and Ringo Starr very famously sold a Patek perpetual calendar just maybe 7, 8 years ago through an auction house here um, in Los Angeles that specializes in kind of celebrity um, artifacts and such. This one, the 3448, what the Italians call the frying pan, because it was kind of like the large size at the time, 37 millimeters, with that sizable case, the nice broad bezel, etc. So that was Ringo Starr's. They somehow loved the Pateks. I don't think George had one, but George was a different breed, anyways.
Hmm. Yeah, 1969 for the first date sub. Um, I would do the trade because I think financially I may be on the hook for that scratch sapphire the next time a service has to happen, or it goes under warranty, or I swap it out. So
Mm.
I think on the CPO program, they have to go through a certain servicing process, and that's from my perspective, it's a soft cost to them. It's not like a hard out of pocket cost that they would have to do because they have people on staff at Booker. Like they have watchmakers on staff. They can certify it right there and they can do certain maintenance items right there. So to me, I think it's plausible that you know, it could work out financially, but it was my first new Rolex, so I probably can't do it. I wouldn't mind a date sub, but I don't think I can trade in my first.
Yeah, well, in that case, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think, by the way, the first date sub wasn't it a gold sub, in fact? Wasn't it the gold sub
Yes,
that
that's
was
what I'm reading here.
yeah, yep, yep. That's true. It was earlier than the 70s. Well, a year before. Ryan Joffrey says, John used to get drunk and beat women. It shattered my universe when I found it out. Yeah, never meet your heroes, as they say, but sometimes it's safer even not to read much about them, I guess. But
Mm.
honestly, Ryan, not to excuse or explain it away, but that sounds to me like typical rock star behavior, unfortunately.
No, don't besmirch Ozzy on that one.
What?
Ozzy Osbourne was wild, but I don't believe anyone's ever accused him of hitting women or anything like that. So,
I
and
mean,
it doesn't get more of a rocker than Ozzy. So,
you're right. I mean, I don't know actually, but the whole reality show has depicted him as such a sweetheart, especially vis-a-vis his wife slash manager.
yes,
Um, that it's hard to besmirch him with anything, honestly.
yes,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. Like I always like pointed out, oh dear, you have a lifetime of drugs and alcohol and late nights, and you end up with two nice kids, a loving wife, and a family, completely intact.
Memovox actually goes against you a little bit, Oz,
It's
because
just
you
too
look too
stoned.
strong to hit anyone. Fair enough. That's a perspective.
That's one way to stay kind.
So, Ozzy, tell me what's going on. There were some heated exchanges between you and your DA. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you were put in a position where you were perhaps expected to buy more to get your platinum Daytona. Has that situation changed? Was it clarified?
Yeah, I don't know if it's unclear. I mean, I did open up the question as like, is there anything more that would help towards the Platona or something like that? Um, and so I did invite the answer to being you know something more, but it just sort of and the kindest way to put it is like the Platona is just a very hard target. Like you have to aim at it for a very long time, it seems like. And I talked to a few other people who are trying to get the same watch, and it's just it'll take a long time, and it's something you have to keep aiming for, and it may never happen. Just the production numbers are. I'm well informed now that the production numbers are so low that um, it's definitely a lot lower than anything that I had anticipated being eligible for in the past. Like,
I wanted to ask, you get invited to their events all the time, and I'm sure you have bumped across some fellow clients who were wearing a platinum Daytona.
I've only seen one. I've only seen one.
Only one?
Yeah.
Did you ask that person at all about his
No,
journey?
no, I didn't. It's also not necessarily clear that they got it from there. Um,
Okay,
just because someone wears they go to an event doesn't mean that they got it from there as well.
fair enough.
Um,
It might even be, on the gray market, that
well,
they.
I would more likely assume that it did come from an AD, but it may have not come from my AD, or it could have. But this person was just throwing jewelry onto the tray as if it was nothing. So it's like, okay, all right. There's like a couple $100,000 worth of jewelry on that tray. How much he checked out or didn't check out, I was like, I don't know. But and then he was looking at a solid gold Moser. And
Mhm.
it's a beautiful watch. The Streamliner. Is it Streamliner? Streamliner. Um, yeah, just it's a beautiful watch in rose gold, the full gold Moser, and I think he seemed very excited about it. So he may have bought that one as well. And this is all post being delivered to Platona, obviously.
Mm.
So very good client regardless. And I'm like, I'm just not at that level. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I bought a couple of gold watches, but whoa, Jensen Button's got one.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I thought this was really cool.
Him and
Um,
Marcelo.
that's
Amazing.
what I was. Thanks
Amazing.
for thanks for reminding, because Kant Daigle was saying, get Marcelo Cooks with his LOL. I was trying to use this as a palate cleanser, but thanks for reminding us again. Um,
I cook with all my watches. I cook with my Daytona.
Yet you were also looking for the perfect cooking watch. I don't know
Perfect
if
cooking
you
watch, yeah.
came up with the final decision. You were saying the Yachtmaster.
Yachtmaster, yeah, you need the retrograde bezel. Like you definitely need like a minutely timer. Chronograph is off the table. That's way too fiddly and it's very hard to read. But yeah, definitely a dive bezel. But the problem with the dive bezel is that usually you cook something like, say, let's say you're cooking pasta and you're up to 8 minutes. You came down to 8 minutes on your dive timer, and then you go, this needs about 2 more minutes. You have to do like basically a 360 to get to 2 more minutes of time. So with
You need
the
a bi-directional.
yeah, it has to be bidirectional. That's what makes it a cooking timer.
Yeah, the usual dive timing bezel is not good for timing eggs, it turns out. I thought that was like, timing eggs, timing your pasta. I thought that was just about the only use. Um,
Well, eggs aren't that bad because those are pretty reliable. Like you don't typically find yourself in the need to add some more minutes, but certainly anything that requires a little bit of finesse, you need the Yachtmaster. Michelin star restaurant, everyone needs the Yachtmaster.
Wolfgang Puck, or Wolfgang Puck. What do the Americans call him? Puck.
Puck.
He wears a Panerai, which I
Mm.
think is really cool. And he's like, he's not a big guy, but he's a little stocky, so it fits him pretty well. I guess that can be a good cooking watch. The size of a frying pan itself. Um, Ryan Joffrey says, "What size of suit do you wear, if I may?" I think the American size is 40L. One thing I hate is like a sports jacket or a suit jacket that's too short. So I like them a little bit longer, to cover my seat, so to speak. But that would be the off the rack size, 40L. Um,
Everyone's way too much into thrifting these days. Like I've been watching a lot of fashion and finance
yeah,
YouTube stuff, and just everyone's just being frugal, and
I've
it is
always
a fashion.
I've always been. The one thing that disappointed me when I made it to the West Coast was that, at least in central parts of Los Angeles, we have way too many consignment stores or vintage stores,
Mhm.
which means, like, you basically have the same selection that you would have in a thrift shop back on the East Coast, except with higher price tags. I have, in time, I have found proper thrift shops, um, for better or worse, usually the ones that are close to, old people's homes and medical facilities have the best stock. God forgive me. But yeah, I've always, throughout my life, I've always thrifted. I like splurging on some clothing once every so often, some newer items for myself, but a lot of my wardrobe has been built on that. I
Mhm.
shirts I usually get new because that I wear closest to my skin. And when they get old, they actually, if you keep them clean enough, they become more charming. And I like the way they age on me rather than on someone else. But the rest of the stuff, you know, I like thrifting. It's
Mhm.
a nice experience too, when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've grown to spend some time at a Goodwill's or a Savers just because it's a more interesting experience than a lot of other things, basically. Like a lot of other things are like the online world brings you into that store or immediately and prices aren't there's nothing to really look at if you get my take.
Yeah.
Um, so for sure, we go there and we do all sorts of things. Like for example, um, got myself a whole bunch of Lee Child books or like this Dan Brown book. Like this, they didn't make a movie out of this one, so
Which
I'll
one is it?
read this eventually because I actually enjoyed the movies. So just yeah, I've got quite a few. Oh, this one's a good one, but it isn't actually about watchmaking. There we go, blind watchmaker
Mm.
book. So I'd love to talk to Docs about this.
Oh yeah.
I won't go into it, but yeah.
No, I mean, I have no problem with
No,
Doc.
no. I mean,
Don't know.
he can
I
do what
just
he
don't
wants,
know.
but
I just
he's
don't
so
know enough about him.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
He's
don't
so
have enough.
staunchly against evolution. Like how that comes up, I don't know. But he goes, yeah. How can that be true and stuff like that? It's like,
But you do know, Ozzy, it's like, it's the American ideology. Like, you have a package deal basically, right? If you find yourself in a certain part of the political spectrum, you have to believe in this and that and the other thing. And then if
mhm,
you're on the other side, you have to, you remember that all the conservative disowned Ann Coulter because she said something about women's right to their bodies and abortion and whatever, and she was basically completely disowned by most conservatives who
mhm,
didn't even bother to say, like, okay, what is it that you're actually saying, what are you arguing it? They didn't care, you know
mhm.
so it's part of that, right?
That's interesting.
If you have to be a conservative in the US, you have to believe in intelligent design. You have to be against all kinds of abortion in all cases whatsoever.
Mhm,
I don't I you don't care if it's rape, you don't care if it's incest, you don't care if it's this or that, you have to be against it. And same, like, if you consider yourself a liberal, you know that's last 9-month abortion, go for it. It's your body, isn't it? It's like, certain segments of American politics are just drawn like um, thinking, I want to say, but that's not really what you call thinking, really, when you subscribe to elements of an ideology without even scrutinizing them yourself. And
mhm,
if anything, whatever I heard from Docs, he seems to be someone who over scrutinizes things, but everyone has blind spots. Everyone has blind spots after all. So, um, but
Yeah.
yeah, you said
Well,
something about thrift shopping, though. I do want to go back to that. It's like, to me, thrift shopping is like getting books from an open stack library as opposed to buying books from Amazon, right? You know, because
I wouldn't knock Amazon, but
no,
no,
that's not
because
what
I
I
mean, half
mean.
of these have been sold on Amazon, as best I can tell. So, for
No, no, I'm
example,
not. I'm not saying. It's not shitting on Amazon. Hear me out.
yeah,
The
no, 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 I'm not saying, but I'm just saying like that. I'm not exactly sure why, but half of these have been marked as Amazon. Like this says Amazon hardback. I don't really understand why they're dual labeled, or whether they were trying to sell it on Amazon as well as in the store or something.
I mean, let me put it this way. Of course, Amazon has algorithms that lead you to books in a similar genre,
Hmm.
uh, things that are intertextually connected to it. But oftentimes, when you buy a book from Amazon, you go to that page with something in your mind, you locate it, you pay for it, you have it next day or in 2 days.
Yeah,
That's the process. When you go to a thrift shop to look for something, whether it's a book or something else,
right.
it's not so much searching for that specific thing that you intend to buy. It's the process of looking for something, anything at all,
Yeah,
that you end up finding. And it's really about that process of rummaging. You know, you don't even have to
yeah,
romanticize it and find some fancy word for it. Just
right.
scouring for different things, and you chance upon something that you might actually like.
Yeah,
Whereas when you shop online these days, you usually know what you're getting, and you pay for it, and it's done.
yeah. It's about a streamlined experience rather than exploration. I think one of the things that so I bought a lot of Blu-rays, and almost all of them I've bought secondhand because there's a really great store, two stores in Vegas called Zia Records, and they have like
Mhm.
it looks like an old school Blockbuster. It's just they got like 12 rows of just Blu-rays going on. It's fantastic. Um, and what I've come to realize is that when you go to those stores, whether it's for Blu-rays or, I look at the book section of Goodwill or something like that,
Mhm.
that in reality, it's going to be populated almost exclusively with stuff that was popular, like extremely popular. Because I mean, that's just how it works. Like out of the volume of things that get put into someone's house and then leave their house, it's going to be the most popular stuff. So there's an almost disappointment when you're only finding like extremely popular stuff. When you're doing this exploration, I mean, it's basically I'm just winding the clock back a few years and just see what would have been at the top of Amazon's, front page as an example. Like Dan Brown books. That's not a rare book. You know what I mean?
No,
That's like I got that because I like the movies, and back when Dan Brown was super popular, he was super popular. It's one of the best-selling books of all time, I imagine. So it is interesting that that while the experience is nice, it's not because we're being exposed to things that we haven't been exposed to before. So yeah, it's interesting.
so Dark Child, by the way, says that he just got Kudoke Infinity. Congrats, man. Wear it in good health. I'm guessing it looks something like this. Although this is a very specific kind of it, I think they call it like blue goldstone or something of that sort, because it has that dial that's made with crushed glass, basically, that gives it the look of that stone aventurine, but not exactly. Um,
It's beautiful.
yeah, the Lange has something like this called copper copper blue. Yeah, I like that. Not a huge fan of that Infinity Hour Hands, to be brutally honest, but I do like that lovely twist of the minute hand as well.
What are we talking about here? production? 12 pieces of that one anyway.
I think Kudoke makes probably about 200 watches per year, perhaps.
Mhm.
Let me double check that.
Wow.
Oh, much less. About 40. Less
Wow.
than 50, let's say.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. This is a true independent territory. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And, quite honestly, they are also much like Habring 2 that we were just talking about. Um, it's when it comes to independence, they are more on the affordable side rather than astronomical. It's a couple or a few um, you know tens of thousands of dollars rather than six figures right away.
Interesting. Interesting.
But yeah, this particular piece is like a 12 unit limited edition.
I like JD's comment here.
What's with all the watch content on a watch stream? Very nice.
Oh dear.
I know. Dark Child says he paid 15,000 euros for
Wow, it's lovely.
this. Yeah,
Is this gold?
is it this exact watch, by the way? Just so we settle that. Um, so just to have a kind of US based reference, I've never had experience with them, but Watch Buys is the authorized dealer for a lot of different German brands, including Zinn, Benzinger, and Kudoke, and Dornblut, and all these different brands. So they have some Kudoke and stuff too in stock too. So we can check on the prices. Kudoke does have precious metal watches too, but I think this particular one, which is $15,280, I think it is in stainless steel. Yeah, it is in stainless steel. Yeah, and the pricing is quite similar in when it comes to the US prices too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's cool also, I mean, to have something um, that's only in 12 examples in the world. I mean, you're not gonna necessarily bump into someone who wears a Kudoke unless it's like a very niche um, watch meeting kind of thing. The power reserve apparently is about 2 days, 40, 46, 48 hours, something like that. Brian Joffrey, you were asking in the chat. Does it say here? No, I think it's 2 days. Yeah, it's a hand wound movement. Decorated in this interesting way. By the way, speaking of our long-standing project, Oz,
Hmm.
there are a lot of phalluses on this watch. Starting with the infinity hand and
Hmm.
the movements.
Couple of
Including speaking of
twirling wheels there.
speaking of a balanced conch. I mean, this is kind of lives up to the name. Yeah, stainless steel and 2 days power reserve. Dark Child confirms. Yeah, it's a nice. I mean, in the photographs at least, it looks great. And those kinds of dials are not very subtle, but they're extremely stunning. And apparently it's numbered too on the back, which I like. I know that, it brings the worst in some clients, and that's why a lot of brands stopped it and started writing like, 1 of 30 or something, rather than numbering them individually, because people start asking for specific numbers and start pestering them. But I kind of like that, I rather than just having this is like, off 30 pieces or off 12 pieces or 50 pieces.
Right.
I like having the specific number. I think that means something when it's a limited edition. So I like that this is the case here.
Yeah. My workplace had a special co-branded Tudor made, and
Right.
we got to choose the number, and you could see the order in which people chose, because it was like we raffled like the positions, and then you could say, okay, you're number one. What did you pick? Okay, you got a one, and you're number seven. Okay, what did you pick? And 69 was like number 33, something like that. Like I got it. I picked 69, and I couldn't believe that a whole bunch of other people had forgotten. No, I was like 19. So 69 got picked the 19th. I'm like, how is this not like number three? Like, who cares about single digits? You got 69.
I
Uh,
I know, and then you gave up your place in the line after the fact, right? Am I right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't regret that. Now, I think liquidity on those watches is very low. I know one person who did sell it, but he didn't reveal the price to me. I'm gonna guess $10,000 in that sort of range.
Mm.
And there's not many people holding out, but I'm gonna guess if you had to get one, 5,000 to 7,000 would maybe get you one. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like a lot of people, like the people who got this, these people, earn similar money to me. They're not hungering to liquidate something to get a few $1,000s. It's going to be very hard to remove them. This being said, I have no idea if anyone even fucking wants it. Like I work for a company that most people don't, how would you say, admire. Um, there's reasons to admire it, so it's not unsalvageable. But the reality is, it's not like for example, if there was a co-branded watch with Chase Bank, like no one should really be interested in that. They're not despicable. They're not particularly terrible. It's just like it's yeah, okay, it's another corporate company, like so on and so forth. The coolest one was the Tudor with uh the pirate flag, the skull and crossbones, and that was the Apple one. And I think that one is actually special because yeah, see, this is just trash, like Facebook. It's not even called Facebook anymore. I guess that might make it a little bit more collectible. It'd be
Meta.
like MySpace or what else could Friendster, the Friendster Rolex or something like that.
Um, yeah, this is, by the way, a page that basically kind of operates as a database of all these limited editions that were made of Tudor. I don't know if they had posted the one you are talking about, but
Hmm.
probably.
That's it. That's the
Yeah,
one.
this is, no, I mean the one that you said.
Oh, the Apple one? No, no. So the Apple one's significantly older. I think it was with another Black Bay. So
Let me see if we go all the way back, maybe. Mm,
this is too recent. I mean, FXDs. I don't know how I feel about all these at the end of the day. Um,
I kind of like this one. This is the
mhm,
Platinum Jubilee one that was
yeah.
given to RASP, Royalty and Specialist Protection Service, and it
Mhm.
has the Tudor rose because their emblem has the Tudor rose. So it kind of has
It's very colorful.
makes
I mean,
sense.
that's a big commitment on that one.
Yeah, I mean, also because that's a very close-up shot, that that maybe exaggerates it a little bit. Otherwise, it doesn't look that
Oh
any.
no, what I mean is like it's custom, but they've gone with
Yeah.
colors, not just print, so
Mhm.
it's significant. Oh, and the Hodinkee one, just
Which
oh.
which one
It's
was
like
that?
yeah, they're on the left. There's a 58 with
Oh
Hodinkee.
yeah.
It's like
Oh,
oh, oh.
oh,
It's like there's a meme with like as far some sort of a Muslim. He's like, brother,
yeah,
just,
yeah. The meme.
I love that so much. I'm doing that in real life. I'm just like, brother, ooh.
I mean, it's just sometimes I fall back into that because I come from a certain region of the world, calling everyone a brother. So,
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah, brother,
I find that meme relatable. Dark Child, by the way, is from Ukraine, so he was saying, "Have a beautiful day. I'm back from Ukraine, back in Austria. Got me a nice watch. Much love. Amen. Wear it in great health again. I think Kudoke makes some great watches, very unique and interesting for the price point. Obviously, you can get a lot of different luxury watches at that price point between $10,000 to $15,000. But I think there are a lot of interesting brands um, like Kudoke, like Habring too, like Benzinger, that that makes great, interesting pieces that you won't see every day on someone else's wrist, especially at that price point.
well, this is, I don't know, man. Yeah, these Tudors, I wouldn't swap any of my normal ones for any of these so far. Uh,
Oh, this is it. This is what you were talking about.
that's it. That's cool. So
The jaw,
anyone who isn't
jolly duck.
like, yeah, a huge fan of Apple, like they flew these flags. Well, I mean, flying them. They're not on a boat. They flew those flags at Apple back around in the Macintosh days. We're talking like
Uh-huh.
1983, and I don't know. Like Steve Jobs had this saying, it's like you don't want to join the Navy, you want to be a pirate. And so they always saw themselves as sort of like the up and comers, the disruptors going up against IBM. So it really harkens to a time that was distinctly Steve Jobs and
Yeah.
a time when they were fighting the war. Now they're clearly the incumbents now, so I don't know, but at least this is hearkening to both an admirable company at a time that it was admirable.
Well, I mean, Jobs had really a knack for some of these one-liners and slogans. You know the story of him trying to recruit John Scully as well,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Pepsi CEO. Yeah,
You want to
when he
you want to sell
finally,
sugar water all your life?
yeah, you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or come with me and change the world.
Yeah.
Um, of course, Scully ended up firing Jobs from Apple after,
hmm
which is an
hmm
interesting twist.
I,
Anyway,
I mean, Jobs, he was on a fucking tear, man. I mean, as in he he effectively despised the Apple II, which was the only thing that made Apple any money, and lots of money. And he was too busy making the Lisa, which nobody ever heard of. It was way too expensive. Nobody wanted it, did nothing. And then he was like, oh, forget Lisa. Let's make the Macintosh. And we're not talking about a new product line. We're talking a whole new computer system, completely different operating system, completely different architecture. and just like, oh, let's just keep doing it. Like he had intentions of Macintosh not being the last computer system that Apple made, you know. So and he was getting the company to fight each other. Like the Macintosh team was my real team. These are my real bros, not the Apple II team. Those guys only make all of the money that you know that introduce kids to computing around the world. It was like that stuff sucks. Macintosh is the way. Um, I don't know. It's just he deserved that firing. Like he deserved it. I mean, he only has himself to blame. I mean, you can't do that. You can't turn the company on itself to on both its product and its people. That's just it was wild.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's truth when you say you only ever have yourself to blame. I think at the end of the day, it's a lot of times I feel it's best to take responsibility for your downfall in the same way that you take ownership when you are successful, right?
Hmm.
That's only fair. But I think his approach to management was always high risk, high reward, right? So when he crashed, it was quite spectacular as well.
Hmm.
But he was lucky to come back to what he had initially built and still lead it, until the end of his life. So
Very,
some
very lucky. They were planning on going with the this French operating system, but I think they just wanted too much money, and Next OS was their next choice. And yeah, return to the fold of Next OS. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the whole lineage of Next is still there in the code. I've spent some time developing for iOS and Mac, and yeah, all the footprint is still there from Next Step.
yeah, some
Uh,
some interesting stuff. Like, I mean, I think you had it right on at the beginning. I think the Jolly Roger one is probably the Pirate Flag one is probably the most interesting and original one. I do like the RASP, royalty
mhm.
and specialist protection for the Platinum Jubilee. That's a Black Bay 58 as well. Um, Color scheme wise, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but having Qatar here in beautiful calligraphy, if you have any connection to the country, could be interesting. Um,
Memovox says never read Steve Jobs' book. Heard it referenced many times. It's still worth a read. Mm. I mean, there was so much cult of personality while he was alive that I think we can just happily give it a rest. He he achieved a lot, but I don't think anyone should try and follow his footsteps. Yeah, take for that what you will. I mean, he was not a person who had admirable qualities. Um, what can I say? I don't. But by
I agree.
almost every account, he does not seem like someone who I'd want to be around or work for.
Yeah, I think it's not a kind of career or personality that you would want to imitate or emulate. I think you can still learn a lot from his life story. I do like the second movie they made about him, not the one with Ashton Kutcher, but what was the
Fassbender.
actor Fassbender?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the later movie, right?
I'm not sure. They both came out pretty close together. But they touched a lot on, you know, Lisa and yeah, it was they were both good. They were both good. I think they didn't touch on exactly what he was working on. Like there was a lot about his personal life in all of them, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to see a little bit more about the early days. And I know we do have that movie, The Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Mm.
So if you haven't seen that movie,
I haven't.
that's a really
No,
fun
I
one.
haven't seen that one.
Oh, okay. I think it makes even more sense today than it did then. And it's
Mm.
like you got Bill Gates, you got Jobs, you got Woz, and them fighting
Mm.
over the future of computing. It's a brilliant movie.
Nice. Okay, I should watch that at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not an art house movie, but
No, it's okay. I mean, trust me, I watch a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's beyond this rather pretentious shell. I I'm the same as everyone else, and I watch a lot of trash. You probably have a much better developed, I think, taste in movies than I do, Oz, because you're very methodical about what you try to seek out in terms of, like, getting the Blu-rays of stuff that you have always wanted to watch, or that you want to watch, on a regular basis. Go back. I'm not I'm not that systematic when it comes to, a lot of times when I watch movies, unless it's the same dozen that I always go back to.
Mhm,
It's happenstance. Someone recommends something, or I end up watching a movie with someone else, um, and that's it.
sure.
I'm not very systematic when it comes to it. But yeah, I did. You're right about those Steve Jobs movies. To go back to it, I think they are in many ways burdened by that cult of personality, and don't really um, relay anything quite technical or specific about his his work life, and even his vision as a business leader. It's
Mhm,
a lot more about his personality, about his personal relationships, etc., than anything. But I do distinctly remember that I like the Fassbender version compared to Ashton Kutcher version, honestly.
mhm,
But that's just me, because I guess I'm just being picky. I don't really rate Ashton Kutcher as an actor, and I just didn't find him compelling as Steve Jobs. You know.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I don't remember disliking Ashton's movie, but I mean, of all of these tech founders, like, I still really like the social. What was the
Social
one with?
Network.
Yeah, Social Network. That was
That
really
was
good.
a good one.
I felt that was really, really good. That's Sorkin at his best. Um, he can get a little bit tedious and annoying with the subplots he decides to throw in, especially when it comes to romance. But what was in Social Network was really good.
I concur. I find Sorkin mostly insufferable. I hated The West Wing with passion. Um, I think this is, in fact, him at his best.
Yeah.
Um, I- do, do you know I actually met one of the actors who played, what was the name of those brothers? I forget. Um, man, the Rower brothers, the Winklevoss
Oh,
brothers.
Winklevoss.
Yeah, I met one of the guys who played one of them. Except, of course, it's funny because in post production they gave both of them Army Hammer's face. So even though Josh Pence plays one of them,
Hmm.
they're all plastered with Army Hammer's face. It's so unfair. Imagine, like, you put your heart and soul into that kind of production, and the movie comes out, and, like, I'm that guy, but you're actually not.
The other. it's funny we mentioned Sorkin. So Sorkin actually wrote the Steve Jobs that you liked.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, right,
really?
yeah.
Okay,
And
I guess I should let go of my prejudice against them
no,
because
he still deserves it. I mean, to make sure that we're checking him, it's like we can't just have two movies say they were great. Um, I don't know if anyone's seen this TV series called The Newsroom, and it was like meant to be like fairly topical, and it's sort of they portrayed it almost as being sort of like down the middle in terms of like portrayal of approaching like current affairs issues on it's a fiction, but they're dealing with sort of like real world politics. They're sort of, I guess, a precursor to like House of Cards or something like that, where you see behind the scenes how the media is, you know, approaching things and sort of the inner workings and stuff like that. Sort of like I guess the West Wing for the White House is sort of like this for the news media. And it
mm,
was just so um like the subplots that involved the romance were just completely snoozeworthy. And so I got into the practice of like, as soon as certain characters appear on screen, I just got to fast forward, just like, oh, this was a bad episode. There's about 35 minutes of that person on screen. Yeah, I'm sad to say, like, invariably, it's like it's the women that are on screen that you have to fast forward to because they're just involved in like romantic tiffs and bullshit. It's just like, no, let's move along. Yeah, yeah. So not a genius, but I've slowly discovered over time that a lot of directors and writers, um, they all fail at some point. There's no one who's perfect. Um, and
did
I've
you
I've been behind certain directors and writers, like it was uh, Stone until he did Alexander, and then, but
right
as I recently pointed out, that actually turned into one of the best movies ever after about 20 years of him having a think
and
about.
and the final version is how long again? 5 hours?
It's at least four, I think, a single movie.
And what's the total amount of time that you actually sank into this particular movie between the three
That's it.
different cuts and over
Well,
the years?
yeah, I only watched the first version, and then it was 20 years. I didn't watch his intermediate cuts that were all just as bad. Um,
Um, what was I gonna say? Shit. Forget.
yeah.
Oh no,
Um,
I remember now. Did you read the recent GQ interview with Russell Crowe?
no, I haven't. I haven't.
Yeah,
Send it my way.
good. We don't have to get into it now, but
Yeah.
since we are gonna in due time do our sit down at the movies Master and Commander, the far end of the world, I think it was, right? The
Right.
subtitle. Um, and talk about that. And this can be a little bit part of our discussion as well. But recently, GQ sat down with him. That's where I got those snaps of his two Nautiluses that he was wearing
Uh,
in photo shoots. And he also did one of those Actually Me episodes, right? When he sits down in front of a computer with GQ and he logs into, you know, Twitter/X and Instagram and YouTube and answers questions,
mhm,
they using an actual account of his, which is a fun concept because it's like a kind of spicing it up for a Q&A.
mhm.
Uh, it's the funny thing that came up, which I do want to share now, is apparently when the gladiator role was first offered to him, he rejected it. Do you know why? Do you know this story?
No, I've never heard that.
So apparently, in the original story, for historical accuracy, they had these vignettes about the sponsorships that gladiators took, like particular brands of olive oil that they used to, used on their skin or something like that.
Mhm.
And he basically thought that was too stupid, too distracting, and seemingly too modern, even though if it was historically accurate, then it would distract from the story. So he had to actually sit down with Ridley Scott and talk about, like, that and some other aspects of the movie before he signed on. It was like, I don't give a shit if it's historically accurate or not. It just sounds stupid and too modern. I'm not gonna do it.
So, so just going back to Alexander. So Stone released in 2004, horrible, horrifying flop at 175 minutes. It wasn't short. Then the next year, he thought he'd redeem himself with a director's cut in 2005. And it actually, he went to shorten it to 167 minutes.
Mm.
And then in 2007, he then went with Alexander Revisited, the final cut. And this one came in at 214 minutes. So almost a full hour longer than the theatrical cut. And then actually, apparently in 2014, he made Alexander the ultimate cut, which I have not seen. So it's been a lot but I think Blade Runners has gone through more, I think. It's just that Blade Runner hasn't been on a roller coaster. Everyone thinks every new version is the best version. Is from what I could tell. It came out, all these, arty-farty people love the movie. Every frame is a museum of things to unwrap, and then the director's cut comes out, and then another director's cut comes out, and then another director's cut comes out. Uh,
I haven't watched what was the new one, 2059.
oh, it's horrible.
I
Yeah,
haven't watched that.
yeah, don't even bother. It's not worth watching. Uh, like
uh,
anything with Harrison Ford in it since 1999, like don't watch that. It's like, why are you watching that? Brother, ooh, what's
the,
that? Ooh.
the only reason I watch anything associated with Harrison Ford is I just love the cantankerous public persona. Um, I love the way he does all the rounds with the media, but he's always insufferable and clearly
Right.
doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to answer. I mean, I don't even know, because I know enough about Hollywood to know some of that is simply another act, another screen, because not everyone can as naturally and as willingly can be friendly to the media. So some of
Mhm.
those people actually choose to play it as a shtick. So they overdo the, like, I don't do media, but I will do a little bit of it kind of thing.
You,
Um,
you know he had a movie last year?
no.
Yeah,
So you
another
did.
Indiana Jones.
Oh no, yeah, yes. What is it? The Dial of Destiny?
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
was.
like, and it's got a director, James Mangold, who I really love. Like, I really respect. He gets he's sort of like a Hollywood director that gets handed a lot of stuff, but the stuff he normally gets
Wasn't
handed, he
great.
does amazing stuff with. So I really hate it when James Mangold's time is wasted.
It wasn't that great. Um, yeah, I'll say that much. I thought he had another movie that I didn't even hear
Oh
about.
no, no, yeah.
That could be, like, that could be something Harrison Ford would do. That he would have a movie out, but didn't get too engaged or involved in actually promoting it, so no one would hear about it. But no,
Yeah,
yeah, I watched that Indiana Jones, but
yeah. Actually, since we're talking about Russell Crowe and James
yeah,
Mangold, so Mangold's had a lot of great movies. The first one that I really loved was Girl Interrupted, Winona Ryder
haven't watched that. No.
and Angelina Jolie looking hot and and bothered. I've never seen Copland. I don't know if that's a good Stallone movie. So that's a good one by Mangold as well.
I
But
think it's probably bashed a little too much, like, because there's that idea that Stallone made a mistake in trying to become a serious actor, etc. I think from that era of his, Copland was probably. I'm not mixing up the movies, right? That's the Stallone movie.
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
yeah, I think it was a decent movie actually, and Stallone did a decent job. I had no idea who the director was, so
Yeah.
I had always assumed that it was his. I thought
Mhm.
he did.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the only movies I haven't watched of Stallone's is The Expendables. It's just like I like the idea, go for it, but I know it's just not for me, so I don't really need to look at it. But you know, in his not documentary, but the piece on Netflix, all on Sly, um, he really like lambasted "Stop or My Mum Will Shoot." Like that, like he really said like this is like the wrong direction. That was the wrong move for me, and blah blah blah. That was actually a pretty funny movie. I liked it. I thought Stop or My Mum Will Shoot was actually pretty damn good. It was really funny. Um, I don't know
Maybe,
about you,
yeah, maybe he didn't want to be funny. I guess that was his problem.
but
Uh,
you have to remember like Stallone, oh sorry, Arnie was doing one action film, one comedy film, almost like boop 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 boop. You had Twins, you had Kindergarten Cop,
yeah,
the Christmas one. Like these were huge blockbusters, you know what I mean? And they were good. They were good
yeah, and
for a comedy anyway.
Stallone's were. I mean, I'm sorry, Stallone's comedy movies were not as good. The funny thing is, look, I if you ask me, I like Stallone more. I think he's a better writer. He's a better actor. But some people have an undeniable energy. Some people have the fucking, that real Hollywood story Charlie Murphy tells about Rick James. Like, he had this aura or shit. It's true. Some people have the aura, and Arnie is one of those people.
Mhm,
He has a certain energy that if he wants to be funny, he's funny. You're gonna fucking laugh. You don't have
mhm,
a choice in the matter, and he can just strap his boots tight and he will look like a fucking tough guy. That's it. He doesn't have to act. He doesn't need to
mhm.
know how to act. The camera just zooms in on him and he's a star. Some people are like that. Stallone wasn't like that. Stallone had to try. Stallone actually had to act. Stallone actually had to write. Stallone
Mhm,
had to work for it. And I think there's something incredibly charming about that. Um, Arnie, just whatever he did, whatever he touched, it was gold. And that's it. Like, that's the difference between the two of them. And I love Stallone so much more. um but whatever Stallone did, Arnie did better, basically, even without trying too hard. And it's kind of sad as a story, actually, but it's also a great American story. Like, if you do certain things and make it look good, doesn't really matter if you have the skill, knowledge, or the brains behind it. People will buy it and people will love it. That should be in and of itself a great story.
mhm.
Hey,
Um,
hey Mookie, how are you doing, man? Nice to see you.
Good day. Um, so 310 to Yuma. So that's another James Mangold movie. As far as I know, remake of a Western. And that was an amazing movie because at the time, for me, Russell Crowe was really big. Like he was never diminished. And also, a really huge favorite of mine at the time, um, Christian Bale, who I thought could really do no wrong. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Batman movies, but as an actor, like there was he was really right up there. But once 310 to Yuma came out and I saw them like side by side on film, I'm like, okay,
Mm.
Russell Crowe makes him look like a child. Like he's nowhere near as intense and serious and believable as Russell Crowe. I think what's admirable about um, Bale for sure is he's fully committed, to his roles, and he's fully committed, and he is talented and he is good. Unfortunately, Crow is just unbelievably talented. There's no real explaining it. I don't necessarily believe he works harder at it, but he just is an incredible actor. Um,
And that's apparently that's a Mangold direction as well, huh? 310.
yes, yeah, yeah.
I
That
haven't
wasn't such a
watched that.
great movie, but it certainly showed acting for sure. Like it was definitely
Mm.
an acting movie. It wasn't like a Magnificent Seven where it's a lot of action or something like that. It's definitely a lot of suspense, a lot of yeah, a lot of scenes where the actors are pulling their chops. So yeah, it's not a must see, but if you want to really understand how good Russell Crowe is and you respect Christian Bale, you'll understand like Russell Crowe is really, really good because Christian Bale alongside him just can't really keep up. And I don't mean it's like, one's the outlaw and the other's the cop and he gets away or something. I mean like just in raw on-screen charisma and intensity, there's really no match.
No, you have said this before. I remember, and for that reason I should really watch it. And I like a decent Western. It doesn't have to
Me
be the
too.
biggest cinematic production. And this is a Western. Russell Crowe and Christian Bale are in it, so that's good enough for me. I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll watch it.
I might put this one in because of the Crow movies we've talked about, 310 to Yuma is the one that I haven't seen in a long time, but I haven't seen Water Diviner at all. So
You
I
you should
don't.
watch that. I think that's a
Okay.
great. Um, I think at some point in time, any Aussie actor has to do, an Anzac movie. That's Russell Crowe's.
Mhm.
And I think to this day, is it? I think I want to say that's his only directorial production. I think that's the only movie he directed to this day. Um,
I'm not really aware of him doing a lot of directing.
I don't think so. That
Probably. I mean,
that
he's
might
got
be the
this
only
movie
one.
Poker Face, but I've never heard of
Okay,
it.
so there's another one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't really trust Russell Crowe for anything other than acting because I've listened to him sing.
yeah. He's the this GQ interview is actually titled "Russell Crowe has a song about that," because apparently that was kind of the theme of their conversation. Like, that the interviewer would bring up something and he would say, well, at some point I wrote this song.
Yeah, his band's name is just so silly. The 30 odd rope feet of grunts or something. Uh,
All right, well, it's past midnight here. I think I'll cut it right here because I will have a long day tomorrow.
mm,
um, Speaking of Arnold, we are going to talk about his watches on Thursday. So I want to drop the link for that. Guys, if you didn't hit the like button yet, please hit it on the way out. It really helps. Here is the Here's the link to Thursday's episode. Should be at my regular time. And Mookie, nice to see you. It's been a while. I know sometimes you drop by, but you don't always write in the chat, so it's nice to see that you are there. Memovox remind us that Sly was at some point married to Bridget Nielsen. The Danish actor was playing Ivan Draga's wife. You remember? You remember her house?
No, I remember Bridget Nielsen. She was very, very pretty woman. Very, very pretty woman. Who was the actress in Gladiator?
Which one? His
Connie Nielsen. Are they related?
I think Nielsen is a
Denmark?
pretty common last name for.
Denmark.
Yeah, in Denmark, I think that's a pretty common last name.
Mm-hmm. Rodover. Okay. Connie. Yeah, different part of Denmark. Yeah. Okay. Completely different. Nielsen.
Yeah, I guess it just means like, someone, son of Niels or something like that,
Mhm.
basically. So it's like,
What?
yeah, what happened?
I,
What's good?
okay. Uh-huh. All right. Oh, I gotta link you this.
Okay, what just happened? Do we have to? Oh yeah, they're filming a Gladiator 2. Paul Mescal apparently is the kind of the main guy, and of
Wow,
course
Denzel. This is all Ridley Scott's crew. This is nuts.
yeah, but no Russell Crowe. That's what I saw, and I was like, okay. Well, I mean,
Well, he
obviously he
died, so
died,
that's
yeah,
yeah, he died. Um,
because
I don't
Jacoby is
actually.
still there.
Yeah.
Um, Connie
Huh.
Nielsen is still there, obviously.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. I'm imagining this will bomb, but we'll see.
I don't
I,
know. I don't know. We might end up being positively surprised. They were. Um,
I don't think Gladiator would do that well today if it was released today, actually. Um, it, I think it's just loaded a little too much in the politics. Um, not that it's like divisive or whatever, but it really is a story of like power and stuff like that. And we've had a lot of that kind of stuff done with like miniseries and TV and stuff like that. Like I'm going through the Rome miniseries that HBO did with
hmm.
John Milius, and I just think that the it's not the best example of that sort of politicking stuff anymore, and then it leaves you with action that is fantastic and bad characters, good characters, but it gets bogged down in the politics. I think in the time I think the politics level of politics is okay, but I think it's not very interesting from a more modern perspective now.
I think also beyond that, before we get into that, nitty gritty, I think it's also the trends in Hollywood, right? A lot of the serious movies these days are, if they're historical at all, they are biopics.
Hmm.
That's the formula they follow usually. They
Hmm.
focus on a particular historical character, and if they do anything inventive or revolutionary, Brian, good night, man, and thank you for the kind words. they do that by upending certain expectations about it, like the way they did it in Maestro, for example, which I really didn't like, actually, because they kind of made the movie about his wife, rather than Bernstein, which, make a movie about his wife. Don't call it Maestro and sell it as a Leonard Bernstein biopic. Anyway, so when they do historical stuff, they don't do the epic kind of productions that still have an intimate flavor, which I think Gladiator delivered really well.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the action is great, but I think that, to me, that is like Julius Caesar for a new age, with good action sequences. I think it was properly Shakespearean in the way that it's proceeded.
Yeah.
Just
It was epic,
a little more.
and how many decades had it been since we'd had an epic film, with, scale and colosseums and things like that. We have to remember that Ridley Scott is approaching Gladiator 2 coming off the back of Napoleon. So I don't know. This could be
Exactly.
his last movie if this doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that wasn't, even though that abided by the current genre rules, it wasn't particularly successful. Not commercially, I don't think, but certainly not critically. Mookie says part of Gladiator's appeal was newish action film and cinematography techniques for that time. Yeah, I don't deny that. I couldn't really appreciate that from that perspective when I first watched it, because I was just a teenager then. So, what the hell is cinematography anyways for that kid at that time? But yes, you're right. That's what really made those action scenes. But in the same way, when I look back at that movie, I really see it as like an adaptation almost of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And I don't mean that in any negative way whatsoever, because it really does its job in quite a different way, and really, really well. Right, we were supposed to sign off.
Yeah.
Bill B 29. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it, guys. Again, thank you for being here. Feel free to hit the like on your way out if you haven't done so already. If you want to support the channel, obviously YouTube gives you a lot of ways. Memovox took advantage of that earlier in the show. Thank you so much again for the super chats. Channel memberships give you access to some exclusive content, which is an ever-growing archive. So stay tuned with that. And if you want to contribute in other ways, the options are underlined in the video description. So thank you so much. Thank you for being in the chat. Thank you, Ozzy, for joining me on the panel. It was unexpected, but as always, really pleasant. I'm glad you could make some time. And guys, stay tuned also. We haven't really chalked down the date yet, but Ozzy and I are going to have a nice At the Movies episode on Russell Crowe, and specifically Master and Commander. But as you can see, we might end up talking about a bunch of other movies of his that we like. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Take care.